Today, I'm going to tell you the story of a man named John Bell. In the early 1800s, John wanted to move his family from North Carolina to Robertson County, Tennessee, a community located near the Red River. He wanted a better life for his wife and children, a place where they could grow their legacy, plant crops, acquire land, and establish a homestead where their children could grow and live. Everything was going so well for the Bell family. One day, John went out to look over his cornfield. He spotted a weird-looking creature. The animal appeared to have a dog's body and a rabbit's head. He immediately shot at the animal, but he missed. When John got home and sat down for dinner, he had no idea that the creature he spotted was just the beginning of something horrific. A haunting began that night that was so terrifying it's still happening over 200 years later. This story is known as one of the most horrible and scary hauntings in the history of our country. It's called the Bell Witch Haunting. Before the rest of the episode, remember, if you enjoy Freaky What content, click the freaky liker button shaped like a hand. Subscribe to the channel and click the content alarm bell so you know when your favorite freaky content is uploaded. Okay, let's get back to it. The year was 1817. John Bell sat down at the table after seeing something strange in the cornfield, shooting at it and then watching it run off into the woods. Everyone finished eating and was talking around the table when all of a sudden, deep beating sounds came from outside of their log cabin. John and his sons got up and ran outside to see what was going on. Immediately, the sound stopped when they got outside and looked at the outside wall. Every night, the mysterious sounds would start up and get louder and louder. One night, everyone in the family was asleep. John and his wife Lucy heard screaming coming from one of the children. They rushed into the room, and their son screamed that rats were gnawing at his bedposts. The horrific experiences continued each night. One night, their son came into their room and cried that something threw his covers and pillows onto the floor. John and Lucy assumed that their children were having nightmares until things got worse. Weeks went by and nothing changed. The family grew tired of these constant, terrifying noises. Then, everything changed. Inside the house, noises such as banging, animal sounds, and walking around began turning into human voices. Whispers became audible, and an old woman was heard singing. As the youngest daughter, Betsy, became more frightened, she began experiencing physical attacks from an entity. John and Lucy would find welts and handprints on Betsy's body and face. She began crying that something was pulling her hair and slapping her repeatedly every night. causing her lots of pain. John Bell was extremely religious. He was an elder at Red River Baptist Church. John didn't want to tell anyone about his family's scary events, but he decided to seek the advice of his closest friend and neighbor, James Johnston. James was very skeptical in the beginning, but he and his wife decided to sleep at the Bell home. Everything was normal and peaceful as they prepared their beds that night. When they laid down their heads, all was quiet, but when they fell asleep, a nightmare began. Their bed covers were immediately ripped off, and they heard whispers all around them. Then James was slapped. He jumped out of bed and pronounced, "In the name of the Lord, who are you and what do you want?" Nothing responded, and the atmosphere instantly settled down. The next day, Mr. Johnston told the Bells that he believed an evil spirit was responsible, and he had a very uneasy feeling about the presence that he called a witch. Legend has it that John Bell Jr. and his brothers Drury and Jesse Bell fought under the command of General Andrew Jackson. Years after they fought, Andrew Jackson heard about the disturbances at the Bell home and decided he wanted to investigate. Jackson approached the property with an entourage of men, horses, and even a wagon. However, the wagon became stuck in a muddy creek bed before it even entered the yard. Jackson and his men all heard a disembodied female voice before the wagon mysteriously came out of the mud, seemingly on its own. That night, as men were setting up tents, one of Jackson's men claimed to be a witch tamer. He bragged openly about having a silver bullet that could kill any evil spirit, and that anything on this property was scared of his silver bullet. Immediately, after a public display of pride, the man started screaming and jerking around as he fell to the ground. Then it appeared like something picked him up and threw him out of the front door. No one knows what happened next, but Jackson and his men were spotted a few towns over in Springfield the following day, headed out on their way back to Nashville. Some say that Jackson himself said, "I would rather fight the British at New Orleans than fight the Bell Witch." As Betsy Bell grew up, she became fond of a young man named Joshua Gardner. The two childhood sweethearts eventually became engaged. Immediately after the couple announced their engagement, voices inside the home would taunt Betsy and physically injure her during the night. Betsy quickly decided to put off the marriage because the witch's activity became unbearable around the engagement. After she called off the engagement, Betsy's abuse and her frightening experiences decreased and almost completely stopped. However, it was a different story for her father, John Bell Sr. During the reign of the Bell Witch, she began calling John Bell Sr. Old Jack Bell. As time went on, he became a seeming target of the witch. One morning, John Bell woke up and felt the side of his face twitching uncontrollably. Symptoms quickly escalated, and a loss of muscle control spread to his throat so severely that he had difficulty swallowing. Over the next year, his ailments worsened, and his health declined drastically. By the fall of 1820, John Bell was confined to his house. On the morning of December 20th, 1820, John Bell Sr. passed away in his home. Immediately after his death, a vial of strange black liquid was found in the cupboard. John Jr. picked up the vial and sprinkled some on the cat's tongue, and it immediately jumped into the air. The cat was dead when it hit the ground. The family claimed to hear the Bell Witch call out and take credit for John's death. John Bell's funeral was among the largest ever held in Robertson County. 3 preachers gave the eulogy and a large crowd gathered. As the mourners began to leave the graveyard, many claimed to have heard the Bell Witch laughing and singing. After John's death, the witch suddenly vanished, as though her purpose had been fulfilled. Many stories, books, and movies have been created about the Bell Witch. One book, called A Mysterious Spirit, The Bell Witch of Tennessee, was written by John Bell Sr.'s great-grandson, Dr. Charles Bailey Bell, a neurologist that lived in Nashville, Tennessee. Dr. Bell wrote about specific incidents in the Bell home over the years, and a promise that the Bell Witch supposedly made to his grandfather, John Bell Jr. Dr. Charles Bell died in 1945, and he was buried at Bellwood Cemetery in Adams, Tennessee. Some historians and investigators believe that encounters between the Bell Witch and the Bell family were demonic in nature. They believe that an entity of this nature with supernatural intelligence did exist, with the sole purpose of attempting to possess John Bell Sr. and harm his entire family. How did these stories continue to be perceived as real accounts by all of the Bell family for hundreds of years if they were only made up? And why would the Bell family make up such intricate stories that only made people weary of being near them? To this day, the Bell farm still draws attention and attracts paranormal enthusiasts and investigators from all over. People claim to experience paranormal encounters with the Bell Witch to this very day. However, no encounters have been as evil as those experienced after John Bell saw a strange creature in his cornfield and took that first shot. This story has been passed down through generations, and many have claimed that most of it is true. What do you believe? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And remember, if you like freaky stuff, subscribe, please like this video, and hit the bell so you'll know when I release the next one. I'll see you soon.